So thank you for joining us today for our second webinar of this term, Publishing Pathways, Best Practices for Advancing Your Scholarly Work. And my name is Carlos Jimenez. I'm the Assistant Director of Writing Support here at GSEP. And we're very welcome to have Dr. Lena Safa, who is the Research and Grants Manager for GSEP's Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. And she'll be joining us today to share all the wealth of knowledge that she can bring towards helping our students, staff, and faculty with their aspirations of publishing in the academic spheres. And so I'll hand it over to some of our other writing support team members so they can introduce themselves. So go ahead, Kate, if you want to take it away.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Sachs. I'm one of the writing support specialists. I work mainly with online psychology students. I recognize some of you here, so it's great to have you. Thanks.
Thank you, Kate. Hi, everyone. I'm Suha, and I'm the writing support specialist, primarily working with the doctoral students. I also recognize some of you, so it's great to have all of you here. And I'll pass it on to Lena just to introduce herself before I jump into my portion, and then we'll get started.
It just doesn't want to unmute. Thank you, Suha. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's great seeing you all today. I'm Lena Safa, the Research and Grants Manager at the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, Pepperdine GSCP, and I'm thrilled to be with you today. I'll pass it over to the writing support team.
Thank you, Lena. Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, great. So again, as Carlos introduced, this is our second webinar for the fall semester, and it's going to be addressing some of the best practices for advancing your scholarly work if you are interested in publishing some of the work that you've been working on. So whether you're a doctoral student who's working on a dissertation, we're going to be covering that in the first portion of my presentation, how to adapt your dissertation into a journal article. If you are not a doctoral student and you are still interested in submitting work to a publisher, to a journal, then I'm going to be discussing that in the second half. And Dr. Safa will also be discussing that in great length as well. So it's really a lot of great resources here tailored for how to some of the best practices for publishing your work. So again, we are the writing support services, and I'll just get started with some of the resources to keep in mind in addition to the Writing Support Center as a resource. So the first resource to keep in mind is the APA Publication Manual, the 7th edition, that is the newest edition. This is the official source for APA style, and it's a manual that guides users very thoroughly throughout the entire scholarly writing process. So from the ethics of authorship to reporting research through publication to APA style, formatting your papers and adhering to the APA guidelines, this is going to be a great tool to have throughout your programs. In addition, GSCP students are usually almost required to adhere to APA guidelines through the assignments. Now, it may not be as required as it might vary from course to course. However, if you are a doctoral student working on your dissertation, I do want to highlight the contingency of formatting your dissertations according to the APA manual, because that is going to be your last step before graduation application, APA clearance. So you'll be working with our office, whether you're a psychology student or education student. Your dissertations would need to be formatted according to APA to be able to clear and apply for graduation. So really, I just want to highlight how important of a tool this manual is to have. And then chapter 12 is an important chapter to bookmark that really highlights and details the publication process, which I will be talking about in the next slides. So just be sure to check that chapter out as well. Then we have the American Psychological Association. So APA is the leading scientific and professional organization. It's representing psychology in the United States. And it has over 100,000 members, ranging from educators, researchers, clinicians, consultants, students as its members. You don't necessarily have to be a member or have a membership to really make use of some of the resources that they have there. But the reason why I'm sharing this as a great resource is because they offer publication processes as well. And I will be discussing those in the next coming slides. So really, when you are looking for a journal, especially as a psychology student, this is where you'll be looking at. So this is a great website to also bookmark and keep in mind as well. Then we have APA Style. It's a website that's offered by APA. And really what it is it's a shortened version of the APA manual. So it includes all of those basic format requirements and basic APA style requirements that are included in the manual, just not as extensively and not as thorough, but it's a great place to start. And then they also highlight the process of publication through APA as well. So we'll get into that. So that's as far as the psychology side. As far as education associations, the first one is the American Educational Research Association. So the AERA is really concerned with improving the educational process by encouraging scholarly inquiry related to education and evaluation, promoting the practical application of research results. So it's highly catered towards research. They have their own journals as well. You can publish through the AERA. You can become a member. And it's not just limited to journal articles. You can publish posters. You can present at conferences. It's a great association to have. Lena is also very knowledgeable on this association. So that's another association to keep in mind. Then we also have HICE, which is the Hawaii International Conference on Education. It's an annual conference, and actually Pepperdine GSCP as a school is a co-sponsor for this conference. So you can attend it annually. And it's a global conference that hosts a space for educators from all around the globe to connect, to collaborate, to share some of their research, to share some of their work. Really, it's meant to be a cross-disciplinary conference where educators from around the world can get together and really share their insights. I know that the 2025 conference was a great success with over 1,000 participants from 47 countries across the globe. So you're really getting that international connection there. And then the last association to keep in mind is the International Leadership Association. So again, it's a professional association for a global community of leaders and educators. Any researchers, students, professionals in the education-related fields are welcome. And really, it's catered for those who believe that truly the key to success is leadership. So it's catered towards global leaders here. And they also have their own journal. They have their publication process that you can browse on their website. So each of these associations that I have just shared all have these extensive guidelines on how you can publish through their association on their websites. So make sure to check those websites out. And now that I've shared all of those resources that you would want to keep in mind, we can get into adapting a dissertation or thesis into a journal article. So this first portion of my presentation is going to be relevant if you are a dissertator or if you are working on some sort of thesis or dissertation through your program. This is going to be really important to keep in mind. So the first step is to visit the APA Style website. So as I've mentioned, the APA Style website is really important in understanding just some of the style and grammar guidelines, but they also detail the publication process for adapting a dissertation into a journal article. Again, all of this information is detailed extensively in the APA manual in chapter 12. So I'm going to be just summarizing basically what that chapter guides their students to do. So once you go to the APA Style website, on the toolbar up, you would select Style and Grammar Guidelines. Then you would select publication process. I just want to highlight that the publication process includes several sub-tabs that are important to check out. It discusses how you can adhere your journal articles to certain journals, the ethicality behind publication. So it's important to just browse all of the tabs underneath publication process. But as far as you're concerned, when it comes to adapting a dissertation or thesis, you would want to scroll all the way down, select adapting a dissertation or thesis into a journal article, and then you would follow the guidelines, which I'm also going to be sharing in the next slide. So it's a pretty simple pretty simple process. You would just want to follow these steps. Once you select adapting a dissertation or thesis into a journal article, the following guidelines will appear on that webpage. So the website will guide you towards and will recommend some of the best practices before you publish, before you start working on adapting that dissertation into a journal article. The first thing that you want to do is to review and prepare. So you want to first gain insight on where your dissertation fits. So which journal would best fit that your dissertation. You might request some input and feedback from colleagues. You might want to browse articles in the field. So maybe start browsing articles in some specific journals, see what the methodology is, see how your dissertation relates or is similar. And then for the publication process, it's important to gain insight on peer reviewing as recommended by the APA. So peer reviewing gives you insight on what is acceptable in a journal article, what they're looking for. They might ask you questions like, does the journal article really answer the research question? Do they highlight some of the limitations? So it'll give you a great insight on what the peer review process looks like so that you can adopt it to your dissertation as you are preparing for publication. So again, review and prepare as the first step. Then you have two strategies that you can follow. The multiple paper strategy, this is before you begin writing your dissertation, or the conversion strategy, which is a strategy that you can adopt after you finish writing your dissertation. So if you know from the beginning that you want parts of your dissertation or you want your dissertation to be published in a journal, then you might want to follow the multiple paper strategy. So in this strategy, you would structure your dissertation as you're writing it as a series of shorter papers. So as you're writing your dissertation, you might want to break it up into a series of shorter papers around 12 to 15 pages. That's how long a journal article usually is. And you would want to structure it accordingly. That way your dissertation is then structured and broken down into shorter papers that can be submitted to journals for publication. And then the APA recommends consulting with the university editorial office for formatting. So I just want to remind everyone that the Writing Support Center does not offer editing services. So we are not editors, but we can definitely help you with formatting your journal articles or your papers into according to the APA standards. So just want to keep that in mind. We can work with you with the style, with the formatting of the paper, but we cannot edit the paper. So just keep that in mind there. The second option, the second strategy is the conversion strategy. Let's say you've finished writing your dissertation and you want to submit it to a journal for publication. Then you would want to reformat and convert it into a journal article after completion. So again, as a reminder, most journal articles are around 12 to 15 pages. Dissertations are usually much longer. So you would want to consider adjustments in brevity. You might cut out some tables and figures, change the abstract a little bit. It will look different than what the dissertation looks like when you submit it and when you clear it through our office. So again, you can always consult with us as the writing support team on how you would format it accordingly. But just remember that you are going to be converting it into a shorter version of what it is into a journal article. And this is all, again, greatly detailed in the APA, on the APA style website and in the APA manual. But again, these are just some true strategies to keep in mind as you're writing your dissertations. So once you've adopted either strategy, once you have a journal article that is adapted from your dissertation that's ready to submit to a journal for publication, you would want to consider two factors when you are choosing the journal for publication: appropriateness appropriateness, and prestige. So you want to determine the scope of the journal and how the document fits the scope of the journal. So you want to look for similarities between your article and some of the articles in that journal. Look at the sample, the methodology, some of the themes, maybe some of the theoretical frameworks. So you want to make sure that you are choosing the appropriate journal for your dissertation. And then the APA services, so the APA does suggest looking into prestige. So you want to make sure that you are consulting indices of journals such as impact factor, rejection rate, the number of citations of articles, and how if the editorial team is distinguished and how distinguished the peer review process is. However, the APA does recommend that if you feel like you cannot make a choice or it's difficult to choose between an appropriate journal or a prestigious journal, you would want to favor appropriateness. Because while you might be able to publish your journal article into a prestigious journal, if it's not appropriate or within the scope of your field, it might be overlooked. So thinking of an example, like if you want to publish a journal article adapted from a dissertation on spirituality incorporated therapy, and you submit it to a very prestigious journal like the Journal of Neuroscience, it doesn't really fit that journal, although it's a prestigious one. Most readers who are going to that journal are looking for journal articles on neuroscience, so yours might be overlooked. So you always want to prioritize appropriateness so that your community is reading your journal article and it's just in the right scope. So those are some factors to keep in mind. So once you've selected your journal, you can begin the publication process with that journal, and I will highlight how that looks like here. But I just want to share another method of publishing work that is not necessarily a dissertation. So if you're not a dissertator, if you're not a doctoral student, and you have a paper that you would like to publish, another method that you could do so is by going to the APA Services website and looking for call for papers. So journals will usually announce call for certain papers, and I'll walk you through that process. So again, here are the guidelines. You would visit the APA website, so apa.org. On that toolbar on the top, go to Publications and Databases, select Journals, then press Call for Papers. Then you would want to browse the journals and the calls for papers. And once you see a journal that fits what you want to submit, then you might want to click it, check the eligibility and requirements, and then you can start working towards it from there. However, there are some things that you want to keep in mind. Again, usually when the journals are calling for papers, because most of the time they're quite specific journals that are recruiting quite specific topics, you might find that if a document you're working on doesn't fit that specific topic, you might want to adjust it. So I recommend continuously browsing these journals and the calls for papers and the papers that they are calling for and seeing really what fits your paper. But again, just keep in mind they might be very specific topics. There also are several deadlines. So in this case, you are not working alone. You are working with editors from those journals as well. So you want to adhere to their deadlines that are posted there. And again, they might specify required document types. Most of them will accept meta-analyses, systematic reviews. Some of them will accept literature reviews, but some of them might specifically require like a quantitative study. So if that's not something that you're working on, that might limit your options. But just keep that in mind. So for example, these are two papers that are being called for in the Journal of Peace and Conflict. So it's Peace Psychology Journal. Their first paper is Teaching Complex Histories, Education During and After Conflict, and their abstract submission deadline is the 1st of February, or was the 1st of February earlier this year. Then we have another paper that is being called Rethinking Resistance in Peace and Conflict, Critical and Majority World Perspectives. So as you can see, there are specific deadlines. It's quite a specific topic for quite a specific journal. So you just want to keep that in mind. Once you click on the call for papers, it will detail the process of submitting your document to that journal. So usually you might register for that journal and then work through there, or you can email a specific editor directly, and they will detail also the required document types. So make sure that your document fits the required document type there. So those are just some two avenues for publication from the psychology perspective. And again, these are all highlighted in each of the website quite specifically, but I just wanted to give a run through, kind of like a quick summary on what the process looks like for each. So how to adapt a dissertation, we've covered that. And if you're not working on a dissertation or thesis and have some other sort of document that you're working on, you can always just submit it to the journal directly. Make sure you are looking for the types of papers that they're looking for, so the calls for papers. And again, keep in mind that in that case, it limits your option. You might need to specifically adhere to what they are requesting. So this was a lot of information, but I hope that you found these preliminary steps helpful. Again, if you need any help with walking you through some of these steps, I can help you as writing support. We are here. But as far as psychology, that is my portion covered, and I will let Dr. Safa talk a little bit about the education portion and just how you can submit your work through also some of Pepperdine's avenue, so the journal for Pepperdine, and I'll just let her get to that. I don't want to jump ahead. So thank you, and Lena, I will stop sharing, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Soha. So let me see. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Let me see it myself first. Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Lina Safa, as I said, the Research and Grants Manager, and I'm here to really walk you through briefly about, regarding the topic of Elevator Scholarship, which is at the very heart of your journey as graduate students. So we're going to talk about that critical leap. I'm moving from being consumers of research to being creators and shapers, contributors of the scholarly conversation. Today is all about giving you the tools to publish your work, understand the peer review process, and strategically expand your research reach. So let's get started. We have a focused agenda today and we'll be moving efficiently to respect your time. First, and this is our main focus, we'll do a deep dive into an important in-house opportunity, the Scholarship Without Borders Journal. Second, I'll introduce you to your new best friend, the Comprehensive Research Guide, which many of you have already been using it, a toolkit we built just for you. And third, we'll talk about the practical mindset of transforming the coursework you are already doing in class into published scholarship. Finally, we will tie it all together by showing you how my department, the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, is one of your central resources at GSCP to support you in all of these efforts. So let's jump in. Starting with part one, Publishing with Purpose, I wanted to put a spotlight here on our very own GSCP-led peer-reviewed journal, the Scholarship Without Borders Journal. Given the time, limited time, if there will be some time at the end, and if anyone is interested, I'm happy to walk you through the submission process briefly and sharing lively the website of the journal. But for, with respect to time, I would, and to be more efficient, I would like to cover everything first, and please let me know. I'll leave this to the Q&A portion. So this journal's mission is to publish rigorous interdisciplinary research on leadership, which, as you know, aligns perfectly with the core of GSCP's identity. The scope and the scope actually is broad, covering leadership in global, educational, and organizational contexts. What's really important for you to hear here is that this journal has an explicit commitment to enhancing awareness of bias in research. So it's a home for critical, thoughtful work. And most importantly, this journal was built for our community here. So rather than going outside and paying money, maybe, that burden of publishing, the cost of publishing, it explicitly welcome and encourages submissions from all of our GSCP community, speaking of faculty, alumni, and students. So that's a platform designed for you. Take advantage of it. This is the practical how-to slide. what can you actually submit? The journal accepts a range of scholarship, and this includes empirical studies, quantitative, qualitative, or mixed methods. It also includes theoretical or conceptual papers, as well as policy analysis and case studies. So I want you to think about that high-impact literature review, that final research paper, or that capstone project you're developing. This is a perfect venue for it. Now, preparation is critical, and this is where many new scholars stumble. The guidelines are your roadmap to success, and it's not a secret, and it's not a rocket science. First, APA 7th edition, as Soha mentioned, is the required format, with two exceptions for the journal. So yes, the APA 7th edition, with two other exceptions that are the single space line, single spacing rather than double space as it is required according to APA 7th edition, and the 1.5 margin specifically for the Scholarship Without Borders journal guidelines, which differs than the 1-inch margin that is required under the APA 7th edition. These are the only two exceptions. Otherwise, the APA 7th edition is the required format. So second, the maximum length is 20 pages, and that's excluding your references, of course. And third, this is the most important rule for the review process here. Your manuscript must be blinded. I still get many manuscripts that are not blinded. Please make sure it is blinded. This means you do not include a title page, you do not include your name, you do not include any affiliation. We will add the Pepperdine affiliation will be automatically added by the system after your submission, and you do not include even page numbers, nor do you include an abstract. All this will be added by the system after your submission. All we need from you is merely your submission, your manuscript, starting with the introduction, ending with the conclusion and the references and whatever figures you have. So the editors, like I said, and the system will add those later. That really helps us ensure the integrity of the double blind review, which we will talk about next. I had some submissions adding PowerPoint presentations. Please do not, okay? Make sure it does comply with the blind review process. So what happens after you hit submit? First, your blinded manuscript goes to the editorial team. We do an initial check for it, scope and formatting. If it passes, it's sent to anonymous peer reviewers. And this is the double blind part, where it takes place. They don't know who you are and you don't know who they are. Based on the constructive feedback, you will receive a decision, typically accept or revise. We don't really typically reject, hardly we reject. Rather, we work closely with you to walk you through the process with very constructive and detailed feedback up until we reach the publication phase. So no rejection in place unless there is something really abnormal. Now I want to talk about the other side of this equation. We are actively recruiting GSCP graduate students to serve as peer reviewers for the journal. And you can be an author, you can submit a manuscript, and you can also serve as a peer reviewer. Of course, you can't review your own manuscript, right? But you can be both or either or. And I cannot stress this enough. Serving as a reviewer is the single best way to demystify publishing and strengthen your own writing. You really learn what makes a successful manuscript by seeing the process from the inside yourself. So if you're interested, please visit the journal's website and reach out to me or to Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, who's the chief editor on board at the journal. And it's a fantastic professional development opportunity for you. Okay, let's say your paper is not a perfect fit, or you don't wanna, or you're already submitted to the Scholarship Without Borders journal, and you're ready to move elsewhere, to move outside GSCP. That brings us to part 2, your strategic toolkit. So I'm really happy to introduce you to the Comprehensive Research Guide, although I've seen much traffic, and I've seen most of you visiting that research guide, and we really wanted to make it a digital live resource for you because we've been updating this constantly. So whatever you see on Google Drive, it's being updated, and we keep updating it constantly. So we have built this as your central curated resource for finding the right audience for your work. Let me share the resource with you now. No. Do you see my screen or should I? Saha?
Yes, we can see it.
Do you see the resource?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so it's really broken into two main parts. Section A is a detailed list of relevant conferences, national and international, as you can see, in education, psychology, and leadership. It's a great place to start. And section B is a curated list of scholarly journals in those same field. And you see under the conferences, the conference section, you have the hyperlink, you have the name of the conference, the focus, what audience it does, serve, what is the here? I'll go back. The description of the conference, whether or not proceedings are available, because some conferences you can really find proceedings, others don't provide publishing at their proceedings, the date and location, mostly updated, target audience of the conference, and the hyperlink. So if there is something that we missed updated on the clock or on the spot, that's a comprehensive list. You have the hyperlink here. Once you click on it, you'll figure it out. So this guide really takes the guesswork out of your question. Where do I even submit? Thank you, Inva. I see that in the chat. Just go back to my slide. And it does not show. Let me just one moment.
We can see the part 3 slide there.
Screen 3. Yeah, but it's not showing. Okay, do you see it?
Yes, we see the slides.
Thank you so much. Okay. So like I said, my call to action for you is to really bookmark this link. Okay, and you need this for your work. Highly recommend using it. Now, and that we talked about it. We talked about the resource guide. We talked about the Scholarship Without Borders journal. Now it brings us to a topic that I'm really passionate about, is transforming your classwork, your coursework. The most important thing here I can tell you is to shift your mindset, really start shifting your mindset. That 20-page paper you're writing for a class, or maybe less, sometimes it's a 5-page paper. It is not just an assignment to get a grade on. It's a pre-publication draft, if you think of it. So I want you to look at your past and current work. The literature review from, for example, EDOL 700, that qualitative research project, even a strong conceptual paper. All of these have publication potential, trust me. The pathways are the ones we've just discussed. You can use the research guide to find a conference or present at, which is a perfect first step, or you can adapt that paper for a journal like the Scholarship Without Borders journal or another one from the guide. Now, I know this can sound theoretical to you, so let me show you a real GSCP case study to prove this pathway is not only possible, it's happening right here at GSCP. It all started with a final paper from my EDOL 766, a quantitative method class. I know many of you did that, but I wanted to give you an example like from my journey as when I was a student. So I submitted that paper and it was from classwork and it was accepted for presentation at AERA, but for sure I modified it and I adjusted it according to the AERA guidelines. So when I say transforming coursework or transforming class assignment, all you need to do is really take your classwork and take a close look at the guidelines at the journal or the conference you want to submit at, and make that alignment, make that adjustment. So it was accepted to present at ARA, a top-tier national conference, as we all know. Soha mentioned it, but it did not stop there. It was only the beginning because the paper was at the ARA in their online repository. and I've received a direct invitation afterwards to write a book chapter. This one presentation cascaded into new leadership opportunities, like serving as a chair and discussant afterwards for the next ARA 2024. 2026 is coming up, and it really led to a whole host of new connections and presentations. You would be amazed. So this all started with one class assignment. This pathway is real and it's 100% available to you. And finally, I wanted to make sure you know who is here to help you navigate all of this. That's us, the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning, led by the director of the center, Dr. Gabriela Miramontes. So think of us as your central hub. We are one of the central hubs at GSCP. We are the home of the Scholarship Without Borders Journal and many other incredible resources. And when it comes to professional development, we are your liaison for research and grants. If you have a strong research idea and a faculty sponsor, and by faculty sponsor, I mean sponsoring you through the IRB process, we can connect you to the Office of Research and Grants to find whether internal or maybe external funding. We also facilitate research collaboration. We love connecting GSCP students, alumni, and faculty whenever possible who share research interests so you can collaborate on projects. And as our name implies, we build global engagement. A great example is our partnership with the New Delhi Institute of Management, the 7th International, and let me share the link here. I know the call for papers went out to the community. I hope you see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So a great example is our partnership with them. So that includes this joint research symposium that I highly encourage you all to submit. The deadline is November 7. You still have time. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a clear challenge and your next step. First, your challenges this week. I really want you to identify one piece of coursework you've done and you're proud of. And second, your action. Open that research guide I showed you and find just one target conference or journal that might be a good fit. Or how about just reaching out to me and sending me the manuscript or the article or the class assignment and publish it at the Scholarship Without Borders Journal. And third, your resource, contact us, contact the Center for Global Partnerships and Learning. Do reach out to me or to Dr. Gabby, and we will talk about ideas. You're all doing brilliant work here at GSCP, and our job is to help you share it with the world. Thank you. And now I think it's time we have left. I would be happy to answer any questions unless the team at the Writing Support Center has anything to add.
Thank you, Lena.
Sure.
So we can leave some room for questions now. And if anyone's interested, I can also share some of the kind of share like a live guide through of what I shared earlier in my presentation. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the chat or just, unmute and ask. But we have some time here. We have up until, the 4 p.m. mark as initially indicated. So
yeah, and I wanted also to add, if I may, Soha, please,
yes,
to
of
the
course,
students
please.
in the room, for whoever would like for the presentation or the slides, the PowerPoint to be shared, you're welcome to ask to just reach out to Soha, and I'll share it through Carlos and Soha's, and Kate, the writing support team, because the slides have those hyperlinks that are very useful for you.
Yes, thank you, Lena.
Sure.
Yeah, I also just wanted to emphasize that, we're here also to help, when you get that feedback from a particular, journal you'd be submitting, if they have some particular requirements, or, if you're working with Dr. Safa, I know I have already worked with some students on some revisions that they needed in order to be accepted into publishing. As she mentioned, they don't deny anyone, but they may return the document for modifications. And so just know that we are here available in the consultant role, and the written feedback role to help you work on those revisions. So, and as Sahab mentioned, we're not the actual editors, so we can't actually like make these larger edits for you, but we can definitely provide that constructive feedback and give you the tools and the knowledge needed to be able to implement that revision process. So I just want to highlight our services in tandem with some of these aspirations that you have. We're here to help you. We're here to support in this process. And these are just a few of the avenues that we have so many, right? We could spend hours on the different types of organizations and associations. So we do encourage you to be active and browsing, the different journals, articles that you come into contact with in your search process. Look at those larger publications, and then you start to see, what are some commonalities in the field, and to really hone in on the scope that might be your niche, right? Your area, depending on your particular program. So, yeah, there's a few questions here.
I see from Kimberly first. Thank
Mhm.
you, Kimberly. So I'm a novice. If we publish a chapter for a Pepperdine book, is it ethical or permitted that we can still publish it? So here's the thing, Kimberly. And if you do you mind walking them through the submission? Well, let me tell you, it has to be original. Okay, it has to be, although it's been submitted to the Pepperdine, to the GICP, and I think you mean that the leadership handbook, which is great, but it has to be, you can't submit to both. You submit it to the to the handbook already. You can extract maybe a small article and rework it to submit to the journal, or maybe another assignment. But the same submission cannot be submittable because the submissions to the Scholarship Without Borders journal have to be original. They shouldn't be published elsewhere.
Thank you, Dr. Safa, for your answer. And I'll just add to that. I think this is just touching on whether it would be considered the ethical part, maybe regarding plagiarism. So as Dr. Safa mentioned, it has to be original. So there might be the risk of plagiarism when you take the same piece of work that's already been published and publish it somewhere else. So that opens a conversation regarding plagiarism, ethical writing that we'd be happy to talk with you, Kimberly, maybe one-on-one. Again, just want to mention that everyone is welcome to schedule consultations with us as writing support specialists and with one of our consultants, and we can go into we can go into detail regarding that. Again, I know I mentioned it a lot, but the APA manual will highlight what is considered ethical writing, what is considered original work, and how to avoid plagiarism and some of the best practices to avoid plagiarism. So just keep that in mind as well. But that's a great question. For everyone that's asking for a copy of the slides, we'd be happy to share those as well. And we have some time left. If there aren't any other questions, I also just want to share a critical part of choosing the journals. And I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen if that's okay, Lena. I think I'm going to.
Please.
You have to stop sharing. Let's see. Okay, perfect. So I have the APA manual open here. So this is what it looks like if you have it online. Or the PDF version of it. So you want to make sure that you're also avoiding predatory journals. So this is a key part for when you're choosing the appropriate journal, and this is sort of an issue that some students may encounter. So a lot of journals will be deceptive. They can be deceptive. And usually one of the ways that they might be deceptive is by maybe having their journal name be very similar to a high and prestigious journal that's already been distinguished and established. And this might be deceptive because they might change a letter or two, or just the way that it's structured, the name of the journal, so that it can appear as though it's the original esteemed journal when it's not. So you just want to keep that in mind. Some journals will, again, might solicit publication via an email that is just informal, so you want to keep that in mind as well. So check the emails of those journals before you do. So this part, sorry, let's just go back there. This section of the chapter 12 is really important to just go over, because while it's important to look and prioritize journals as detailed here, this is where we talked about appropriateness and prestige. You also just want to make sure that you are avoiding predatory journals and deceptive journals. So you want to look at some of the indices that I mentioned earlier. So you want to look at how peer-reviewed the journal is. You might want to look at the editing team. Again, they might have a non-standard submission process. So most of the journals, you'll have to register for that journal through their own through their own website. Some of these deceptive journals might have you submit it via email. Again, that's not really ethical. That's not correct practice. So if any, deceptive email is asking you to submit your document via email, you just want to be on the lookout for that. So just make sure to keep this in mind here. And I'll just walk you through very quickly the steps that I shared earlier. So first, starting with the APA style. This is regarding adapting your dissertation or thesis into a journal article. So you would go to the APA style website, again, selecting style and grammar guidelines. We're going to go to the publication process. Again, as I mentioned, there are other tabs that are important to look at. Open Science, really, that touches on the ethical practice of writing. Correction notices, if you receive a correction notice from a journal editor. Cover letters, most journals will require you to send a cover letter before you submit your document for publication. So make sure to look at these tabs here. But as far as adapting a dissertation into a journal article, this is where you want to be pressing, and it will show you the guidelines of how to adapt your dissertation into a journal article. As discussed, the different strategies, the multiple paper strategy or the conversion strategy, and it will show you in great length how you're supposed to be adjusting your dissertation for publication. Again, all detailed in chapter 12, as you can see here as well. So that's through the APA style website. As far as the APA website itself, so you'll be visiting apa.org. You would want to press on publications and databases, select journals. From there, you'd scroll down, see what papers they are calling for. So browse the latest open calls for papers. And then you can browse all of the different calls for papers that are submitted, that are posted here on this webpage. So as you can see, there are multiple journals that are calling for papers. Some of these, you want to make sure that you're looking at the deadlines. These are a little bit older. Scrolling down, you might find something like this, Journal of Latinx Psychology. They're looking for a paper that's on Latinx bilingual psychology. Let's say we click this one. The submission deadline is January 15, 2026. It'll detail exactly what they're looking for. So we invite articles on all aspects of this topic with relevance to interdisciplinary studies of Latinx mental health. They seek articles addressing psychological issues. They'll detail which populations, which languages they're looking for. So it's here in the parentheses here. Again, they kind of, every journal is different, it varies. Some journals might say something like, we give priority to high quality research. Other journals might say something like, all papers are welcome. So you want to look at each journal and their requirements. And then it'll detail the process following that. So that is just one example there. Some of them have no submission deadlines and will just call for a general paper. So general call for papers. Let's look at the Journal of Neuroscience here. So topics may include these topics that they have over here. Again, they might specify a document type. Manuscripts may be conceptual or empirical in nature. So again, going back on what Dr. Safa had mentioned, it could be a conceptual paper that can be transformed and adapted into a journal article. So that is also appropriate. So again, you have so many great resources here, as Carlos mentioned, and we can go on and on about these resources. So we hope that we touched base on some of the most important ones. So I believe that I'll stop here, and then if there are any more questions, we have a few more minutes left, and we will definitely be sharing these slides with whoever requested them. I think we might just and we have the recording of our presentation today too.
Thank you, Saha. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, I would like to add something, a very important note here about the research guide that I talked about. Yes, it's a live digital resource available for our GSCP community specifically. Okay, so please make sure, because I've been getting requests to have access to the file from outside Pepperdine, or maybe these are GSCP alums, but they're using different email or private email. I am so sorry, but I'm not able to provide access or to give access to any email that's outside Pepperdine affiliation. So please make sure when you send me the request to have access, send me the request through your Pepperdine email, whether it's a current email as a student, faculty, staff, or alum.
Great. Yes, that's a great detail to remember.
Yep. And we are open to any questions you may have. And I mistakenly had, added my email address under Dr. Gabby's name on the slides. I corrected that now.
Yeah, and when we generate the recording, we'll add a link to Dr. Safa's slides and Saha's slides. So everybody that RSVP'd will have a copy of the slides.
Awesome. Thank you, Carlos. And if anyone is interested hopefully you are, to submit to the Scholarship Without Borders Journal, please reach out to me if you are struggling with navigating the process, or if you have any question. I can either answer by email or maybe schedule an appointment with you, and I walk you through the submission process lively, and it's a straightforward process. But don't hesitate to reach out. That's why we are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just put in our writing support email inbox. If you have any questions about, anything that we covered today as well, or any questions about, using the WC online system to schedule consultations or written feedback, just send us an email and we can send you the instructions. So thank you.
And by the way, if we mismention, sorry, Carlos, just to know, for your information, if you don't have it, if you don't know it yet, when you submit to the Scholarship Without Borders Journal and your article gets published, you will get a DOI. So that's an open access publishing format. It's very, very widely visible for your scholarly work in the scholarship work.
I'm sure all of you writing the papers and including in your reference list, having that DOI, right? If available, to include the DOI, which is an APA requirement. So that's just a direct link that will take the reader, to that article online. So it's promoting that easy access, right? So that's great. That's really great benefit to have there.
Yeah, and this is how I started myself. Started with the GSCP resources that are available for all of us for free, honestly. And I started moving outward, outside GSCP, but starting with our own resources. This is why we have them here.
Excellent. Yeah, well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate you joining us, and yeah, we'll be sure to send out the recording and the slides for the presentations once they're available.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully we see your submissions soon.
Absolutely. All right, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a great day.
Have a good day. Great week ahead.